Guys, these now are the drive attributes. What really gets us into gear, gets us into activity, gets us moving forward. And on Friday, you covered self-efficacy, the belief in one's ability to achieve a goal, especially when the path is uncertain or unknown. Today, we are going to cover discipline, which has a lot of fun elements, the ability to remain focused and steadfast to achieve a result. And then we are also going to be bouncing into open-mindedness, one that comes up time and time again in our world, a willingness to consider and accept new ideas, opinions, or perspectives. Of course, I'm in here. I've got highlights. I got lots of things that I can put in front of you. And as always, I want to hear from you first. So, what do you guys have from any one of these three chapters? Let's kick it off.
I love the part about the roller coaster. And that's the end of 14, sorry.
Give some more details and flesh it out for people.
Something has happened in me, and I have reconnected with an energy that I've known about because it's in my history, but I haven't experienced it for a while. And it's similar to the roller coaster. I wanted to learn to speak French like a native so that a French person would insist that I was French. Everybody said, "You're 22, you're too old, it's not possible." After moping around for a couple of weeks, I committed myself 24/7. At the end of the year, the customs officer arrested me for having an American passport. And suddenly I realized I'd done it because I didn't think about anything except the goal. And there were obstacles. The heating in my room kept going out. The floor was terrazzo, which is like cold rock. And it was extremely cold in the north of France. I got chilblains. I didn't even know what that was, except it was in David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. And what it means is that your feet are so cold, the blood gets to the end of your toes and it can't turn around and go back. So it breaks through and you get scabs all over your toes. You can lose your toes. I told my toes to stay on there. I warmed them. I softened them. I did whatever. Anyway, I didn't leave. Even that didn't stop me. I was in such a... And I feel like this guy is doing that with the roller coaster. He can't stand the roller coaster. It upsets him. He has very bad memories and he's going to do it anyway. And he's right next to his wife who loves roller coaster more than anything. And he's still not there, but he's not quitting. And somehow I have just shifted into that mode here and now. And I'm kind of scared of myself, which is good.
Well, I like how you've kind of tied these two chapters together on the discipline piece of sticking it out no matter what. And we're going to have some fun playing with that. And this open-minded piece of chapter 14. And so one of the things that Dorothy put in there was this preconceived notion portion, which is exactly what the author had. And so on page 134, he's at least acknowledging perception is at the core of the human experience. You all have perceptions based on whatever's occurred up to this point in your life. And you can't help it. You're a judging machine, and those perceptions are what are giving you these fast labels. The inputs are the inputs. Whether rainy days make you happy, or the smell of roses makes you sad, has to do with how your brain interpreted and cataloged previous versions of those inputs. Open-mindedness is being willing to set those down, not buying into, hey, this is what happened before, so this is the story attached to it, so this is what the future lies. And we deal a ton with that in our real estate world, whether it's working with consumers who have had a real estate experience before, so they think that's the way the market is now. Maybe they've been buying and selling houses for 40 years, and they're still looking in the newspaper to find the right house. They're not open-minded to technology. Or agents those that are working on having real estate agents come and join you in a totally different environment, they've been through all the other brokerages. So all brokerages are the same. It just comes down to money or something else that's locked in their perception. Open-mindedness is something that's going to allow you to accelerate quickly. That's why it's in here as an attribute and one that we can build. What else do you guys have? Carrie, I see your mic's hot.
Hi. So when I was reading 12 and it was talking about self-efficacy or however you pronounce it. That was something that was newer to me. And when I was reading it, I felt like I have to master that more because I have a really hard time. Like I can set a goal and I can start going for it and doing that and knowing that I can do it. Like I generally know that I can put my mind to it and I'll accomplish it. But as you know, I'm terrible at the discipline part. Like I start it and I do it, but then all of a sudden things happen that are huge, like bigger than, and I have to tend to those things first. And it's just terrible because as you know, coach, I just don't get far enough. And it's really just disappointing because I know that I can do a lot better. I'm aware of it. I just get so distracted. It's incredible.
Well, and I want to challenge you and others in this room because you went from chapter 12 to chapter 13, 13 being discipline, that maybe, just maybe, that's not really the challenge. And what was going on in chapter 12 with self-efficacy and what that means. And again, the author breaks that down into 3 components that all interact. It's a combination of confidence, initiative, and optimism. All 3 of those have to exist. So if you find yourself sharing all the what ifs or why nots or yeah buts, maybe your optimism is what you get to work on in practice. I see that so many times where people absolutely have the confidence. Yes, I can do it in the moment. They have the initiative. They'll take the first steps. And then the moment a challenge comes, the optimism goes away and it breaks down their discipline. So I'm going to challenge you. Get on that optimistic piece if you are running into struggles. And remember what he says here. I know I can do this because I'm willing to take the first step. And even though I don't yet know all the answers or how this will unfold, I will continue until I am successful. And this confidence piece, confidence lies uncomfortably between arrogance and timidity. It's that middle place in between. Confidence is, okay, I'm going to keep going no matter what, yet I'm going to analyze it, versus arrogance, I'm just going to slam on the gas and see what happens. So I'm just challenging you guys, man. Lean into those other pieces. Caesar, I see your mic on, then Josh, then Tom. Let's go.
I wanted to make a quick comment on what you just said about the level of excitement when you tackle a project. It reminds me of, if you could refresh my memory too, Coach, that cycle where it's like the excitement, then there's like the valley of despair, when you feel like, oh, you're excited, and then it's like, oh, wait, this is way tougher than you thought, and then you get to that despair valley, and then if you continue to push through it and be consistent, you kind of go back up. So that reminded me just what's of that same kind of pattern that we go through when we tackle something. It's, it's difficult, despair, but then when we continue pushing through it, that's when we feel like we finally reached a good result.
Well, I love that you changed the tag end of it, if it's the one I'm thinking of, because what I would share with folks is the life cycle of the traditional, quote, real estate agent. Because the ones that watch out, because they get excited, I can do this real estate. They get going, they create business, they crank things up, things happen, they drop down. Maybe the market shifts. In fact, There's people that are getting out of the industry right now. Market shifts, things go down. And so they get complacent, they get angry, they get frustrated, they get irritated. And so at the bottom, they find the new shiny object. I know, I'll get my LO license. I'll become a mortgage person. I know I can do that. And they get all excited again, and mortgage does it. Or, gosh darn it, I'll get into financial services. That's what it is. Financial services now. Rather than staying on it, keeping the discipline and keeping the optimism that this is just a low point. And if we just do what we know we're supposed to do, magic will happen. Josh, you were next up.
So two things in chapter 12. One, Celeste is going to have to change her name to the badass fairy godmother as opposed to fairy godmother. Two, it was interesting being in Dallas this week or last week, because I think in addition to confidence, initiative, and optimism, you also need a little bit of ignorance. And the reason I say that is I feel like I had a great time, great to meet a bunch of people in this room. But it seemed like every other person that got up was talking about, wow, this market's so hard. This market's so tough. It's so, everyone's struggling. It's so difficult. And so you want to have a little bit of ignorance in that regard, because if you truly buy in to what people say, it can affect you. And obviously I don't know enough in this industry to know whether it's a good market or a bad market, but it really did have a little bit of a downer feel because people were just talking about, man, this market and everyone's struggling. And I think in some regards, you've got to have ignorance.
And Josh, can you add a little bit about what that ignorance has been doing for you?
I mean, I don't know if it's luck or maybe it is. I mean, yeah, we've got more business than we know what to do with. I think I've got one closing today, closing in a couple weeks, two that should hopefully get under contract this week. And then a couple others that I just can't do anything with because they haven't gotten here yet. I mean, they're on their way here. So, yeah.
This keys in back to my comment on chapter 12 and the optimism. All the people standing on stage at Build that were talking about how hard the market is and that, they were buying into the pessimism. And we hear a lot of that right now. And man, if you're on social media, if you're on some of these feeds on Facebook and other places, it's just all the chatter because those people are having a struggle. And yes, a lot of those exist. They're just people that aren't doing the work. Those that are actually doing the work, lead generate, lead follow up, go on appointments, negotiate contracts. Focusing on those four, which means if I don't have contracts to negotiate and I don't have appointments, I'm just lead generating and lead following up all day, are crushing it. And they have the optimism to know that if I just talk to enough people, business is going to show up. And Josh is the absolute poster child for that. Tom, bring some more optimism to the room.
Well, it's just really interesting the way everything is flowing. At the first person that was speaking kept saying, I start, but then and so my concern was, gosh, look what you're affirming. You're affirming, and we all do it, but you're affirming that I'm going to take steps towards what I want, but then I'm going to shrink away from it. And then it came all the way around. And even, I mean, Caesar and then Josh, who was saying everybody was affirming the negative. That's what we're doing when we buy into or go into agreement. And when I'm talking to agents that are around me, especially new agents, I'm saying to them, look, when you hear somebody say, this is really tough, walk away. Don't affirm that. Don't get into agreement with them. And just something very simple. Efficacy is just a nice word for effectiveness. So when you're reading that, anyway, that was just interesting as heck to me.
Superb. Jeanette, what do you got, my dear?
Well, just reconfirming, Josh, anybody who's new into this business, just take from the rest of us, you make your own market. It's how you shift and you adjust. I I have never found that I'm able to say this is a tough market or this is a great market. They're different. And the market that Doug and I have is the one we make. It always has been that because it's if you're reaching out to the people, then you have business. And is it if there's a shift in the market, then great. If it's slow, it's because we haven't shifted yet. If But there's not a bad market. There's different markets because it just depends on your skills, and we're here developing our skills for it. So make your market, adjust. Don't buy into the rest of this stuff. This is 29 years of seeing this. You're your market. If you don't like what you see, change yourself, change me.
Janet, I
Almost
wanted
ties
to
into
just
almost ties into your business grows to the extent that you do. Justin, you're up, and then Caesar, you're next.
What Jeanette was just saying about the market and making your own market, it reminds me of conversations I've had throughout my life where people they'll talk about marriage or the dating scene in such a global way. Like there's no good this out there, there's none of that out there or whatever. It's just so funny because that's one person's experience and yet somebody else having completely different. So amen, I'm with you, Jeanette. I really in the wind up to this chapter, I get the idea on recognizing where you and other people fall so that you can help explain everyday performance. Like I think that's good. And then I see like we're on page 116, deeply focused on one thing, but at the expense of other priorities because of an inability to pull out of that focus. So I think that's something that that I could work on or area I could grow, like the shifting part or shifting at the right time. And I think part of that is a decision of what things we're going to win at, but doing it in a way that's conscientious of that there are things that we're going to either lose at or not do.
Absolutely. And one of the other takeaways I want to make sure I anchor from what you've said, Justin, is that ability to pivot. In fact, the author says that if you want to see if someone has a high level of self-efficacy, most often it can be seen in a number of times we or those we are assessing deliberately pivot. Make a deliberate, significant change. It can be something as simple as changing a brokerage, changing a lead gen strategy. So you're in real estate. One of my favorites on this is Tom Daves. 2008 was coming, and he pivoted to working with banks. By the way, was the number one agent in the entire KW world for 3 or 4 years straight because he just did bank REO listings. He made that pivot. And so in this market right now, you guys very well may be pivoting to a new lead gen strategy. If you stay in the old one and it's not working, that tells me we have a low self-efficacy. If we're not following the models that people are presenting because we think we know better, maybe that is low there. Caesar, you had something to add?
Yeah, Jeanette sparked an idea about the markets, right? Because if you ask yourself how great of a market was 2021 for agents, everyone's like, yeah, great, we're so busy. But how great was it for the buyer, right? We're having to put like 20, 30, 40 grand, 50, even more over ask. And that you have to ask yourself how great of a feeling that is for them. And it's not. It never is. Like that whole bidding war. Ask any buyer, and I don't think they're like happy to get into a bidding war as compared to now. For example, Some buyers you can negotiate a lot more. I have a more heavier investor, and there's deals now that I could not get done even a year ago, where now people are way more open to the idea of certain numbers because of interest rates. The sellers were still in the idea that their interest rates were like way lower. So I just thought about that, about Janet saying, the market is different. You just have to adjust to that. And then lastly, Coach, about changing lead gen things, and started writing some handwritten letters as well instead of calling. And that also got a lot more response with people calling me. And then we got into great conversations. And so that's like a great point. And lastly, as well, when the pandemic came, I got a call from a certain Coach Russ asking if I was open-minded about learning about what's going on here. And I was, and here I am today. And I don't think I would have read, what is it, 13, 14, 15 book. I don't know what it is now, in this last period, and opened my mind, as well as it feels not as challenging dealing with these other customers and clients, right? Because now we ask a certain question, or we don't try to just tell them how we were probably used to doing before. So just want to say thank you as well to this whole group about that, just helping me develop as an agent, as a person as well.
Yeah, think about that. All of you have pivoted by showing up in this room on a regular basis and becoming readers. Think about that. Just in the last 9 months, for those that started, in here, to those that are just showing up now, you are changing a lot of your attributes just by the consistency of being here. How cool is that? Jeanette, your mic's hot. What do you got?
I just was adding to the complaint about the market. The other market was that people would put, instead of writing 1 or 2 offers for a client, they were writing 10 offers. For a realtor, you were doing 5 to 10 more times more work for that same offer. So until you could get your hands on what would make that particular offer work, and getting the client to work. So it was, and people couldn't get any listings in the same way. I mean, you would hear people saying, well, I can't get any listings. If I could just get some listings. It was a hard market, if you want to look at it that way, for a lot of people. You did as much work. And when you got into your flow, when you started getting your connections, it was a good market with it. So it's just another proof. When I started in 2001, 9/11 happened. I stood in front of the TV and I went, God, did I hear you right? But I knew in my, at that same moment, people will always need somebody to help them buy and sell real estate, someone that they trust. And like Dorothy, she got it in her mind. I just did it. So go do it. Don't worry about whether it's good or it's not good. What are the skills you need, and figure them out? Because what is your client asking for? Then those are the things to learn. What's this client asking for? Then that's the skill to learn. And you find that you have a niche after a while. So like I said, it's not a good, bad market. It's where the reason this mastermind is so essential to every one of us is because it's mindset. It's mindset. That's where success is. You get our success magazines. What do you read? Mindset.
Well, and this entire book is mindset. It's just breaking it down into the pieces. And you opened up with something for me, Jeanette, that just put a huge smile on my face. Because people complaining that the market's bad. People are complaining, I can't get sellers. There's not enough listings. People complaining that I don't want to get into bidding war. Think about those buyers. No, I'm not going to get into bidding war. So they just sat on the sideline and watched values go up 30% because they weren't willing to jump into the market of the moment. And as I look at people in our world or in the public domain in real estate, have you ever noticed the people that can bitch or that are bitching are capable of bitching about anything and everything? And it goes back to that optimism piece of the self-efficacy. They need to work and strengthen that. Doug, bring us home.
On page 134, I think this is in open-mindedness. It talks about how to be open-minded, you're actively putting constraints on the imagination. We're removing those constraints on our imagination. I'm trying to say it right. So what we're doing is we're in favor of what could be. So this starts developing imagination and starting to push the bounds of what we understand and what we know. And being in this room is certainly doing that for a lot of us, and really strengthening our ability to become more of what we can be. And it is sometimes contrary to human nature because it's uncomfortable. But what we're doing is we're building our own reality. We're focusing out there and imagining what could be and what we're wanting to do, and we're developing new neural pathways for ourselves. So all this open-mindedness stuff is just recreating us at a higher level, and it's an exciting adventure.
So we're going to be open-minded to a couple of things today. We're going to be open-minded to reading the next 2 chapters on cunning and narcissism. Should be fun stuff because a lot of times we have negative labels around those two. In fact, the author addressed that earlier. And we are going to be open-minded to showing up 2 to 5 o'clock today on Monday and having conversations around our peers. Enough people show up at 2, we can do some practice and role play first. And if not, the ones that are there, jump into it. And you guys can come anytime during that block of time, turn your camera on, and show your peers that you are having the conversations that are required to be successful in real estate.